Hello, my friend, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Daily. My name is Aaron Machbitz. Let's talk about the April 10th edition of Friday Night SmackDown. Maybe let's talk about kind of the good things that happen on Friday Night SmackDown. I really did enjoy the Drew McIntyre and Jacob Fatu kind of brawl, fight, intensity. I enjoyed the Drew McIntyre promo with him in the cell. I am looking forward to that match of Jacob Fatu and Drew McIntyre. Now, I think they're treating Drew McIntyre less than the superstar that he is, which I don't appreciate because I think Drew McIntyre is one of the best in the world. I also really like Jacob Fatu. I seriously don't think he's like a main event player. I think he kind of floats in that upper mid card range, maybe winning the World Heavyweight Championship once. But Drew McIntyre is a true main event player, and I hate when WWE disrespects that. But I think their segments on Friday Night SmackDown were solid. I think the beatdown, the brawl, the fight, the chains, the handcuffs were great. But it also makes me pretty convinced that Jacob Fatu will win the unsanctioned match at WrestleMania. And that's probably fine. I don't think it'll hurt Drew McIntyre that much. I really did hope that Drew McIntyre would have walked into WrestleMania as champion. I think the feud between Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton would have been awesome. I even think a Fatal 4-Way match would have been awesome, and it would have been probably better than this Randy Orton-Cody Rhodes feud that we are getting with Jelly Roll and Pat McAfee involved. So kudos to McIntyre and Jacob Fatu. I know this build to WrestleMania has been bad, and WWE has kind of fucked it up at every turn outside of Obafemi and Brock Lesnar, which has been executed perfectly. But if you just look at the matches on WrestleMania, they're really solid with some really good talent. Another thing that happened on Friday Night SmackDown is I don't really understand why Jade Cargill is beating Io Sky clean in the middle of the ring. I don't understand why Jade Cargill has a high-profile championship match on a big show against Rhea Ripley, and Io Sky's match isn't even announced yet. They absolutely have to have Io Sky on the show. She's the best wrestler on the women's side, maybe even in the whole company. Just work rate itself. She gets reactions. People love her. Why isn't she wrestling Asuka? I know they're waiting now for Nikki Bella to know if she's cleared, because if she isn't cleared, I think they're going to add the Kabuki Warriors to that, which would be Asuka and Kairi Sane, which would still leave Io Sky off of WrestleMania. And to leave Io Sky off of WrestleMania is just blatantly stupid. Just to leave Carmelo Hayes off of WrestleMania is blatantly stupid. To not add Carmelo Hayes to the triple threat match, or to the match of Sami Zayn and Trick Williams, doesn't make any sense. Carmelo Hayes has carried SmackDown with his United States Open Challenge for a while, and for the last 9 months, he's been the best thing that's happened on SmackDown. And so to have him off of WrestleMania doesn't make any sense, especially with the momentum he's built. And so I don't understand why Jade Cargill is so being heavily featured. She can't literally do anything. She can't talk. She can't wrestle. She can't sell a fight. The only thing she has is a great physique. And kudos to that. It's really hard to get a great physique. So I appreciate that fact. But this is sports entertainment, not bodybuilding. And there's a huge difference. And to leave Io Sky and Carmelo Hayes at this moment off of WrestleMania is a travesty. Now maybe they'll make some changes and they'll add it to. I don't know. I also think like The Miz and Kit Wilson and Danhausen are doing a great job just being extremely entertaining. And that's what the show needs. Like, that's what wrestling is. It's supposed to be entertaining. There needs to be some lighthearted stuff. That's kind of what Jelly Roll was before he decided to go into the most important feud on SmackDown and become a very serious part of a main event 20 years in the making of WrestleMania. So that's been an interesting decision by WWE. Originally I was just absolutely hated Danhausen. Hated it. Hated his debut, but he's absolutely grown on me. I think Kit Wilson does great work. Obviously, The Miz does great work. I wouldn't mind seeing a little kind of a handicap match to kind of ease some tension a little bit at WrestleMania. Danhausen versus The Miz and Kit Wilson. Maybe Danhausen has a mystery partner, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's fucking R-Truth. I don't know. But I think that would be fun. So those are a couple things that happened on Friday Night SmackDown, but obviously most importantly, we have to talk about Pat McAfee and his promo. So let me just read some stuff from the internet from multiple different accounts, fans, wrestling commentators to give you guys kind of an idea of the pulse of what Pat McAfee said on Friday Night SmackDown. So we have one that says 20 years of history, almost 50 years in the business between them, and the entire feud is centered around Pat McAfee and Jelly Roll. That tag team match is absolutely happening at Backlash. This is deplorable slop. WWE should be embarrassed. Now, all of Pat McAfee's promo wasn't bad. I heavily agree with the part where he said that CM Punk is a fraud, because CM Punk is a total fraud. But he had some contradictory statements. You know, he said he has this massive announcement. Massive announcement for Friday Night SmackDown. And the massive announcement is that the product is trash, everything is ass, everything is bad, but you should go to WrestleMania and here's 25% off. None of it makes sense. It's contradictory. It's very, very strange. But I do agree that CM Punk is a fraud, and I will say that to through the very last day I talk about professional wrestling. But Pat McAfee does have a gift of talking, and I think that's cool. But not a lot of stuff that he's saying is making sense, and I think it's actually pushing away a lot of fans and driving them in. But one guy on X, Danny, says this: Pat McAfee is single-handedly shifting the WWE audience back into the right direction. IWC weenies are fuming at his very presence, and men who have lost interest in WWE over the years but live in the general stratosphere of sports culture are going to hear that he and Randy Orton are beefing with Jelly Roll and CM Punk and come back to the show. So there's difference of opinions here. Some people are absolutely fired up about Pat McAfee, but just like Cody Rhodes said in his response to Pat McAfee, it's almost universal, which very rarely happens, that nobody wants Pat McAfee there. No one wants Pat McAfee, not in the sense that they don't want him in WWE. I think Pat McAfee has a strong role as being a good character in WWE. But to be interjected in one of the most important matches in WrestleMania history, with 20 years of history that's written itself, it didn't need the added layers of Jelly Roll and Pat McAfee, who don't really know the history between Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes, which just writes itself, like Cody Rhodes said last week on SmackDown. So that's been interesting. Now, this fan just kind of wrote basically what WWE has done on the road to WrestleMania. This is their opinion. Again, I think the road to WrestleMania has been subpar, but I think the actual matches, the content of the show will be great. So you have Cody versus Randy. As rivalry has basically turned into Jelly Roll versus Pat McAfee. Punk versus Roman feud became Punk versus TKO. They think Drew McIntyre is being treated like a jobber in 2026, which I don't necessarily disagree with. LA Knight is getting screwed for another year. I don't think that's true. I think LA Knight is the exact place he should be in. LA Knight is not world champion material. Just like I don't think Sami Zayn is world champion material. Just like I think Jey Uso wasn't world champion material. Not everyone can be a world champion. You need lower card, mid card, upper mid card, right? Things of that nature are very, very, very important. Demon Finn versus Dom without the IC title, I think is also lame. I also think to announce Demon Finn before he shows up is lame. I know he said in his promo, but that leaves anticipation, and then his music hits, then he walks out, then it's like, boom, the aura changes. Boom, Demon Finn Balor is here. And then they say they fumbled Chris Jericho's WWE return, and just like we talked about, still no Io Sky match at WrestleMania. We are just 1 week away from the biggest show of the year, and there's still no hype. This person blames Triple H for fucking it up again, but there's a lot of moving pieces, and it's not just the fault of Triple H. But all right, then we have Jason Solomon, who said, in the span of 1 week, they ruined the main event of WrestleMania, embarrassed themselves by actively telling their audience that their product sucks, their roster sucks, and their champion sucks, and they can't sell out the biggest show of the year as they beg for people to buy tickets. Pathetic. Yes. So the product sucks, the champion sucks, the roster sucks, but you should still go to WrestleMania even though it's ass. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, and I don't really understand what direction WWE is going in, because I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around it. But I think this specific tweet really wraps up everything that most fans are thinking, or some fans are thinking, but at least how I'm trying to process it. Two things are undeniable. Pat McAfee's insertion into the WrestleMania build has added intrigue, controversy, and wild social media engagement. That's a fact. Also, his fiery promo on SmackDown was performance-wise very good indeed, as he unapologetically hammered Cody and Punk. But two other things are undeniable also. Just like Cena's heel turn last year on the road to Vegas, none of this makes any sense whatsoever, meaning fans' emotional investment is impossible. I think that's a good point. He did go after Cody Rhodes and CM Punk really well. Social media engagement is crazy. Pat McAfee has a lot of lure in sports and culture, so those things are undeniable. But it doesn't make any sense, so there's no emotional investment. Plus, putting Pat using TV time to bash the product, calling Night 2 of Mania ass, while simultaneously promoting discount tickets due to slow sales is absolutely baffling beyond belief. It's unbelievably weird, strange, it doesn't make any sense. The whole thing, thanks to TKO, not just Triple H, thanks to TKO, is a creative mess, and all at the expense of the very long-awaited and much anticipated feud between Cody and Randy. What a shame. Let's just hope WWE has something better planned for Vegas. And the better plan for Vegas is for the actual content, the matches, the wrestling, the show itself to be fantastic. So when fans are actually immersed in the show, they forget about all the bullshit that's happened before this. But they did miss out on the emotional investment piece and the story that WWE could have been telling rather than just relying on Jelly Roll and fucking Pat McAfee. So that's kind of the pulse of WWE fans at this moment, whether they're fans, whether they're wrestling commentators, whether they're a little bit of both, like myself. And so it'll be interesting what happens in the next 7 days before WrestleMania 42. But you can stay up to date here at Pro Wrestling Daily. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Then like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Lots of love. Cheers.